Hello all, good evening. Hope I'm audible. So thank you for joining and welcome for this session on project management in the virtual world. As we keep discussing within BGSW, we are foreseeing a lot of changes happening in and around project management, be it around technology, with the pace of technology being changed very fast compared to the previous days, or it could be the geographical and cross-cultural challenges, or it could be the new thing that we have encountered on pandemic and virtual world. And these changes are always in front of us as project managers and making us think in innovative ways, keep learning to manage them. And as you know, even inside BGSW, we have taken many initiatives. One of the very primary one being making BGSW into a project-centric organization. So the emphasis that we put on project management in the organization is going to increase day by day, as you see. As part of Talent Family from Essex Project Management, we are very delighted to have a speaker with us today who needs no introduction. All of you who have done PMP, I'm sure in one or the other context you have come across this name, and I'm sure you are equally excited like I am. He's none other than Ricardo Vargas. And it is still, I would like to go through his profile a little bit so that it is not only through the videos that we know him, and we also know a little bit background about what he's doing. So he's a chief advocate in the project economy today, has a worldwide experience. He has specialized in implementing many innovative global initiatives, capital projects, and product development. And he has directed dozens of projects across industries and continents. And he is managing more than 20 billion in global initiatives over the past 25 years. He has written 15 books on project management or around project management with risk and crisis management, transformation, etc. They have been translated to many languages and over 500,000 copies are sold. He's a very influential personality in project management arena in the world, and he was also the first Latin American to be elected as the chairman for the Project Management Institute. He's also a venture capitalist in and around the entrepreneurship regarding project management. And he has also directed a project for United Nations Office for Project Services, the UNOPS, and from Copenhagen, and this project has reached to over 120 countries. And his startups today have more than 1,500 employees, and he's a well-known name across the world in the project management arena. So, Ricardo, we are excited to have you today, and over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Gopal, for the warm introduction, and thank you all. I miss to be with you in person, but I think it's a fantastic opportunity for all of us to discuss a little bit more about what is going on in the world today, what are the challenges we are facing, and how we can really succeed in this environment we are living in. So I just want to invite you, if you want to ask questions, please feel free to use the chat. So at the end, I will pick some questions to Andres and to answer them live. The other ones I'm not able to answer now. I will record and I will deliver to you. So what I want is to, of course, when we talk about project management, I think that the first thing we need to understand is what's going on. Because if we do not know what is going on in the world today, it becomes extremely hard for us to understand which kind of competency, which kind of technology, which kind of approach would drive us to better results. And if I try to represent the world today through photos, and I'm absolutely sure that the first photo that will come to us is this. It's the coronavirus. And I'm not talking only on coronavirus as a disease, okay? As a disease or as a virus. But I'm talking about all the unexpected and unintended consequences that COVID brought to us. From working remotely, from disruption in supply chain, from all the challenges we are facing today with an enormous volatility. Things are changing in a pace that we had never seen before. And the COVID was, I think that one of the best ways I can explain, if I take a piece of paper, and imagine that this is time, okay? This is time. So the arrow of time goes this way. What COVID brought was this, flipping the time. And what do I mean by that? It's the concept of shrinking time, the concept that things that we expected working in technology, that it would take maybe 4 years, maybe 5 years, it's now 4 weeks, or it's now 4 months. So the COVID was one of the biggest catalysts of speed in all sectors. And in technology, I cannot even think about a better example. Technology to use to produce vaccines, technology to use to move people to work remotely, right? It's so interesting. I'm here in my office and I'm talking to you from pretty much everywhere, online, remotely. And this became the absolutely new normal, if we can call it's a normal in some ways. However, when we think about this, I need also to show other images because, of course, the COVID is, I would say, the driving car, but there are many other things that happen that just brought a lot of concern. We are now living a war inside Europe with a lot of devastation that is changing dramatically the way people do business. Just to give you an idea, many of the suppliers in software development and technology, many of them are in Ukraine and Russia. So all this disruption is changing dramatically. And I'm not even talking about the political consequences of the war. At the same time, if we go to this second example here, Evergrande, we never ever thought that an organization that was so massive as Evergrande, I don't know if you have an idea of what real estate is for China. Real estate is the primary destination of reserves, of savings. Every single Chinese save his or her money in real estate. So when something like that happens, what do we expect? We expect not only a company failing, but we expect all the value chain starting to become more complex. Another thing, if we look here, the two photos in the bottom, we are talking about more and more polarization in the world, more and more different drivers from different opinions, from, I would say, left, right, and a massive impact on the way we do business. Real estate never ever suffered such a dramatic challenge. And why I took these photos, honestly, I picked all these photos just for you to know. In newspaper, in advertisements, and newspaper magazines, and they show the world we are living. And of course, it's for us sometimes easy to question and to discuss, for example, COVID after 2 years of COVID. but it's not very easy to look ahead. And to look ahead, it's really, really challenging for us to look ahead. So what I want, it's always for us to look back and see mistakes. Very easy, but it's not very simple to look ahead and see what can happen. And I want to start showing this example. And why I love this example, because every single one of you listening to this presentation, you know the result. You know what happened. It's Blockbuster and Netflix. And I want you to think with me in the next minute. You leading initiatives and projects at Blockbuster 15 years ago, and you receive this chart: the revenue of Netflix and the revenue of Blockbuster. And one important thing you need to know: in 2000, Blockbuster declined to buy Netflix for $50 million. They declined to buy. They say, no, it's not worth. It's not worth for me to pay $50 million because we don't believe this business is sustainable. If you know, Netflix business was not streaming. Netflix business was how we can make the life for those who want to watch movies easier. Instead of making them go back to Blockbuster to return their tapes or their DVDs, can we ship to them and they put in the mail and make their life easier? This was the route, because nobody wanted to return or to pay late fees. The business model of Blockbuster was mainly the mainstream of revenue of Blockbuster was late fee payments. And this was the root of what Netflix found as a really a blue ocean for them in terms of streaming. And then, if we go back here, they released the Extreme in 2007. But now, please go with me. Imagine you are at this point here. Let me just change the color here. You are at this point here. And then you have a big, big question. Where should I go? What will happen? Will Blockbuster revenue go this way? It will go back up, or it will go down. This is the challenge, because we know what happened. Because what happened was this: 1 year, simply, Blockbuster was bankrupt. Bankrupt. It's very easy for us today, in 2022, to point and say, Blockbuster did not see, Blockbuster did. But I have a question to you today. Look, these four entities. And this is the tough question. Who will dominate this new entertainment in the next 5 years? Will it be Netflix? Will it be Disney Plus, Apple TV Plus, Prime Video, HBO Max, or something completely different that we are unaware of today? This is the bingo question. Who knows the answer to this question will transform the world. And if we go to our own environment, and if we take the Gartner Hyper Cycle, take a look on this. And I want just to show you, most of the things we are talking are still not mature. They are not, because mature, where you really, really make a lot, is here. And I want just to give you one simple example. One simple example. Let's take this piece here. NFT. Okay. We are talking, I have a couple of articles on the use of blockchain, the use of blockchain in project management. But let's talk about NFT. NFT became, I would say, something so cool, so trendy in, I would say, 4, 5, 6, 7 months ago. Everybody was talking. And I want just to show you an article from Forbes that was released a couple of days ago. And this is the article. Interest in NFT and the metaverse is falling fast, sorry. And why I'm showing you this? It's not this is not a talk about multiverse. This is not a talk about NFT. This is not. This is a talk about how we can succeed in this environment. And when we see this, I have only one thing to describe this environment. It is what will dominate the future. Will it be metaverse? Will it be something else? How the retail will behave? What will be the presence of technology? How social media will play a role? I just want to, I always tell, every time I talk, I always tell this story because for me, it's so powerful. I have two daughters, okay? They are now 22 and 18. But at that time, my oldest daughter was turning 13. And I said to her, now you at the age of 13, I will open to you an account on Facebook and you will have Facebook. For her, it was like, entering in heaven or in paradise or something like that. Because it was such an important thing for her. Because that social media at that time was really, really everything to connect to people, etc. 4 years later, my youngest daughter became 13. And of course, what I did as a parent, I said, Gabi is her name. Gabi, it's now your time to have a Facebook account. Do you know what she said to me? Dad, Facebook is for old people. That was for me one of the most brutal things I heard because I said, I'm still trying to figure out what Facebook is about. And now my daughter is saying that is already old. And maybe tomorrow something will be. I'm not talking Facebook as a business, I'm talking the platform. So imagine you in technology. Imagine the dramatic impact on every single shift. We see a massive shift in the auto industry. We see a massive. Nobody thought that Tesla would play such a bold move. I live in Europe. Every single car now comes hybrid or electrical. This is a big, big shift. This is a big shift for all of us. And this is what I want to describe with you as this VUCA environment. And I know that many of you will say, oh, Ricardo, VUCA is, it's such an overused word. But due to the lack of a better word to explain this environment, I want just to go and help you how you can succeed on this kind of environment. And first, let's understand what is volatility. Because people think that VUCA is everything the same thing. It's not. Volatility means something that changes quickly and in a relevant way. Something that goes up and down sharply. This on the drawing. This is volatility. This, things go up, things go down, things go up, things go down. This is an example. This is real example of Coinbase website with the Bitcoin price. This is just to give you an example. The second one, it's for you, uncertainty. And this is, for example, the National Hurricane Center prediction on how a hurricane will behave. And what is uncertainty? It's many times you cannot predict because you don't have the information you need. Yeah, of course, it's so easy to predict when you know everything. But when we don't know, I want to bet with any of you here. Imagine, let's go back 2 years ago, and when COVID first hit, everybody, include myself, I thought, oh, I will stay 15 days at home. And then in 15 days, someone will figure out what we should do. And then we'll, in some ways, go back to normal. What happened? We all know we were stuck for 2 years. I used to travel more than 1,000,000 miles per year. Suddenly, I stayed 1 year without a single flight. A single flight. I had never had this experience since I was something like 18 years old. And what happened is that we are still uncertain. We are still uncertain. Everything became so uncertain. We don't know exactly, for example, how the war will unfold. We don't know exactly how NFT will unfold, how Bitcoin will unfold, how the oil price will unfold. And these impact dramatically every single step. Don't think that because you are developing a software, for example, that is very specific, that you are not affected. We saw this clearly with COVID. And this uncertainty, it's something that we need to learn to live with. Despite of not being, I would say, educated to live in this scenario, we just need to learn because certainty does not exist anymore. The third one is complexity. Everything became so complex. This, for example, it's from my time at the UN, and this is public. The Daily Mail published that. This is the map of stability in Afghanistan. And we all knew how complex Afghanistan was, right? We saw the removal of the troops, all the turbulence, everything, you know? And this is the challenge because things are so complex today. We see from economic sanctions to technology. When you talk, for example, each of you, you want to hear from me, for example, and say, what is the key trend on that Gardner hypercycle? I'm lost. I'm completely lost. I made, as a venture, some initiatives in AI chatbot. And it's really something that you need pretty much to open the box and see what is inside. What is inside? Sometimes you just don't know. Things are far more complex. I love to use a personal life experience. My father had was one out of 10 children from my grandmother and my grandfather. And I want to ask you, listening, how is to educate nowadays 10 children? Imagine you now and your husband, your wife, with 10 children. One, it's 10-year-old, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and a newborn. Working virtually at home with COVID. Can you imagine this? And what's the difference? It's because life at that time was far more simple. Far more simple. The way I was educated, I'm Brazilian. So the way I was educated in Brazil was simple. My mom had, okay, he should go back home at some time, not too late. But now look the risks we see coming from technology and this, cyberbullying, everything. Things are far more complex. Careers far more complex, technology is far more complex. I'm not talking about the software you use to do that, but your challenges are far more complex. And last but not least at all, its ambiguity, I want to challenge each of you. Take a look on this image, and this image is more than 100 years old. This image, it's called rabbit and duck. And then I ask you, what can you see? What can you see? Can you see a duck or can you see a rabbit? Because if you look this way, you can see the mouth of the rabbit, the eyes, and the ears. However, if you want to see a duck, this is the mouth, this, and this is the neck, and this is the back. Who is right and who is wrong? And this is exactly the concept of ambiguity. What is right and what is wrong? It's not 2 plus 2 equals 4. It's not. We would love, that it would be like that, but it's not. It's something like, or maybe 2 plus 2 is something around 4. It can be 5. It can be 3. It's ambiguity. We don't know exactly what we should expect. We just don't know. And these 4 challenges create a whole new scenario for us. And this scenario is what I want to share with you. And I really worked hard here, trying to identify what are the 7 things I would strongly recommend that you practice to be successful as an organization. And everything I'm talking here, it's to be successful as an organization, as an area, as a project, and as a profession. So what is required? Which kind of competence we are talking about? And the first competence I want to share with you is the concept of moving from fragile to anti-fragile. So what I want you to understand and go with me, when you see this flower is called dandelion. And dandelion is a perfect example, for me, one of the best examples of anti-fragility. But before I go to that, I want just to move to you to a flip chart here, because I want just to draw one thing for you to understand. Okay, take a look on this drawing here. So what is fragile? Let's put a line here. What is fragile? Fragile is something that gets worse or damaged with shock, with stress. Imagine a glass. A glass is a perfect example of fragile. If you let it fall, it will what? Be destroyed and become useless. This is the concept of fragile. We all know. What we don't know is that for most of us, we think that fragile is something that loses with stress. And we think, okay, so the opposite of fragile is robust. And what is robust? Robust is something that is able to resist to that shock. Imagine a glass made of steel. What happened? When it falls, it will not be damaged because it resists to that shock. So it means this loses and this keeps. And most of the time, we always think that for not being fragile, we need to become more robust, able to resist the shock. And what Nassim Taleb is the creator of this. He created a magic concept. He said, robust is not the opposite of fragile, because robust is just zero. It's just resisting to that loss. We need to identify things that improve with shock. And this is anti-fragile. Means, imagine that you let the steel glass fall and it becomes better. And it becomes better. This is the concept of anti-fragile. And this drives me back to this image. And why the dandelion? Because when you look to the dandelion, what do you see? You see a fragile flower that, a wind, a light wind, will just destroy the flower. However, did you see that in every single piece that flies goes a seed? Goes a seed. And the seed becomes other dandelions. This is why many agricultural firms, they treat dandelion as a plague. Why? Because it's very hard for you to remove it. Because every time you shake, you move, it becomes stronger. And I want to give you another example. And this is the example for me that is critical for all of you. It's like doing exercise, physical exercise, running or weightlifting. What do you do with your muscles? You are putting stress on them. And you are allowing them to grow. Nobody becomes strong by doing nothing, right? You become strong because you in some ways you weight you lift a weight and it's strong and it hurts, and then your muscle needs to adapt and grow and become. And this is anti-fragile. So what is an anti-fragile company? It's a company that is able not to resist the stress, but it's able to grow, improve, become more powerful, more relevant with stress. And these, for example, how you can create, for example, in technology, just using as an example, in technology, an anti-fragile career. How? One of the key ways for you to do that is when you expose yourself to challenges. Because if you don't expose, your muscle does not train. Every time you take an easy project, think about that. Every time you take an easy project, is this training you to become more anti-fragile? The answer is no. It's not. It's not. What trains you is the challenge. Many of you ask me why, for example, as a Brazilian, I decided to lead the project management and the infrastructure at the United Nations for 5 years, between 2012 and 2016/17. Why I did that? What was one of the key reasons? I was not aiming to move and become a UN employee for my life, but I wanted to learn different things, to learn different aspects of the project management that would make my ability to deliver projects better. And this is what makes you more anti-fragile. It's the challenges. And not only the success, it's the challenges, the problems you had to overcome when you lost employees, when you have a critical deadline, when you only saw time shrinking in front of you. And you found a way of moving towards that. So it's very important that you understand that this is, for me, I would say, my first comment and suggestion to each of you. Then, my second one is learn to unlearn. And why I'm saying this? Because everybody talks about learning. few people talk about unlearning. What happens is when you learn something, you start to have a fixed mindset on one type of solution. You only see the world, the technical solutions, the technical challenges using your lenses and the lenses that you learn. For example, when you do coding, for example, you go back to the roots, you go back to the algorithm, you go back to that. And many times you need to disrupt that to find the perfect solution. It's, as I said for Blockbuster, as I said for Netflix, it's very easy for us now to see that streaming is a fantastic thing in terms of entertainment. But going back, it was not. So what you need to say, okay, how I can unlearn and learn fast. And why I put a bike? Why I put a bike? Because many of you may ask me, why the image is a bike? Because there is a channel on YouTube that I love. I really love. It's called Smarter Every Day. And I will not show the video here because you can watch later. But the Smarter Every Day, that's the host of the channel. He did one thing. He challenged himself and he took up a normal bike and he put a gear on the bike. And the gear on the bike just make the bike work in an opposite way. Means you turn here, the bike goes this way. You turn here, the bike goes the other way. So it's just the opposite of everyone learn about how is to ride a bike. And he tried for the first time. Impossible. Second, impossible. He used this in his talks and he said, I give $200 to anyone that could ride this bike for 10 meters. No winner. It took him 8 months, I will repeat, 8 months to learn how to ride that opposite bike. And why? And this was the sense of his video. Why it was so dramatic? Because he said, my challenge was not how to learn this new bike. It was to unlearn 40 years of experience of what a bike is about. It's to unlearn years on a car must have 4 wheels, a car must have a door, a software must have this, a bank must have a branch, a store must have a door and and shelves. Did you see? This is learning to unlearn, because even what work is today, right? What work? I'm talking to you from Portugal. Many of you are in India. Many of you are in Vietnam or other parts. This is the new way of working. So most of you probably are watching this talk from your homes or are working at home. My daughter, my oldest daughter, she works and she goes to the office one day, I would say maybe 3-4 times a month. And this is, many people said, this will go back. I don't know. We don't know, because we need to unlearn what job is. We need to unlearn how do we, for example, how do we check performance? We need to learn what is a performance index. What is the value? What is the value of you look the past if the future is completely different? This is why I saw one of the comments here on the chat about resilience. This is your ability to quickly, for example, I am turning 50 years old now, this week, okay, Friday. And many people think, oh, Ricardo has a stable. Gopal was very kind of introducing me. Oh, Ricardo has the books, has this, has experience. So Ricardo is relaxed. Not at all. No, I will repeat, not at all. I am in panic, trying to learn, unlearn every single day. Every single day. For example, just for you to know, I am now enrolled with my youngest daughter at Code Academy to learn Python. And then you say, Ricardo, whoa, what on earth are you learning? Why on earth? Because I don't know. I don't know. Things are becoming so dramatic and bad in technology that I need to know a little bit more about technology. And the last time I did that, I was at the engineering school. So this is what I'm talking to you. So what you need as a team, you need together to learn how to unlearn, how we can unpack. Okay, how do we unpack that? Okay, and this is important because many times we only see one solution to the problem. The third one I want to share, it's the use of data. Data is the king. You need to use data. You need to test. You need to have a lot of data so you can leverage the results. It's not just feeling. It's not just feeling. You need to understand. Imagine you with the workforce that you have today. Imagine if you were able to leverage data and get the data on user experience, data on tests, data on database user, all these data, and you can make sense of it. You can improve dramatically. This is why, for example, many times YouTube, social media, they promote a video, they promote something, they devote something, they do that. Why? It's simple. It's just because they are able to leverage a massive amount of data. This is so critical. So what you can learn from the data you currently have. And maybe the data will show that maybe the direction you're going is not the best one and you need to revisit that direction. Think always about that, because many people, they don't trust too much. They trust so much their gut feelings, and the data shows differently. So think always about that. This is a big trend today. Everybody is trying today to figure out what data can bring to us. Look on COVID, look on retail, look what Amazon does. Look what Tesla is doing with the car. The car is a computer. The wheels and engine, it's irrelevant. What is really matter, it's computer. Look, the energy sector globally. They are trying to figure out how I can leverage the information I have about consumption, everything, to optimize my network. I work a lot. Most of my clients are on capital projects. I work a lot on energy. This is magic, because most of the time we need to manage energy in a smart way, and energy is becoming extremely expensive. We see now from oil to wind turbines. So we need to manage that. Another advice I would give to you is simplify. Simplify. Always keep in your mind that you need to look, what is the easiest way for me to move from A to B? What is the easiest way? Because honestly, Let's not create a complex management for a complex project, because then we'll have two problems: the project and the way you manage. This is why, for example, agile frameworks are so popular. And this is why, for example, I use, even in my capital projects, engineering projects, many concepts of agile to create a simplified model, even for an ultra complex capital project, because many times on the way you communicate, on the way you interact with people, on the way you report problems, on the way you manage exceptions, simplify. Most of the time, we create such an apparatus to control things that the burden of managing it is more complex than the project itself. It's like I work at many times in implementing ERP systems. Sometimes you create a huge process to manage something that is not relevant in the organization. So how you can have the right balance? How you can, for example, many people talk to me, and I want to give this example to you because this is super relevant. Many of you, probably all of you, work in technology, and the James Webb Space Telescope from NASA is basically technology. Okay, it's basically technology. But did they use agile? No. Why they didn't use agile? Because most of their projects, they have no chance whatsoever to create an MVP and test it. They did tests in the lab, but when the telescope went to the French Guiana to be launched and they release it, done, it's over. There is no, if something happens there now, they lost $10 billion. That's it. So you give the management complexity that is proportional to the effort you have, to the effort you are doing. Many times on software, we can create simple things and we can implement and make them grow based on their usage, on the acceptance of the customer, etc. So think always, is there a simpler way of doing that? And this is what you always need to keep in your mind. Another thing, this is more on the personal, and this is something that I want to share with you. It's this concept of redefining work-life balance. And I'm not saying that you should work and forget life, and or keep your life and forget work. What I'm telling you is that you need to redefine that, because this is very personal, and I want to tell you that I love what I do. So for me, there is no such a thing as work-life balance. And I know that you may think that this is nonsense. But for me, there is only life. There is only life. So if you need to leave your work to start living, then you have a problem. Then you have a problem. So, and now with COVID coming in, this became dramatic. This became dramatic because the separation of work and life that used to be, okay, I will put my jacket and I will go to work. And then at that time, I will come back from work and go back home. Then I will spend my time with my family. Suddenly, what happened? Everything got mixed. And many people had a hard time to manage this priority, and many organizations too. So, how you create this? And of course, you need to identify these boundaries. And at the same time, one thing you need to go deeper on the sense of purpose of your organization, your area, and your project, because then you give a meaning to the work you are doing. So why, for example, many people ask me, "Oh, why do I publish the videos on YouTube? Why do I do this? Why do I? It's because this gives meaning to what I am doing. This create a reason for me to be alive and to work. And this is something that many, this is why, for example, we all saw and we are seeing today a term that is called the great resignation. Why? Because we are suffering to manage that, and this sense of purpose will give you that. This will make you, because when you have purpose, all of this I said to you, they are interconnected. You become more anti-fragile. An organization with a strong sense of purpose is anti-fragile. And this is exactly what we're talking here. So this is why, for me, it's so important that you always keep in your mind what you can do to redefine this work-life balance. And this, of course, is a cultural aspect, and we are not the same, okay? Now, the next one is understanding change in a holistic way. And this is very, very important. When you are developing something, and this, I worked with many, many teams in software, many, many. What is very common, what is really common, is that you did your piece and you just deliver. And many times we don't see the full spectrum. And then you release and you create a breach in security, and a hacker can come. Or you create something that will create an unintended consequence. I want to give you another example on Facebook, and this is just a didactic example. I don't know Mark Zuckerberg, but I honestly think that when he created Facebook, he was not aiming to people to spread fake news or to spread hate or bully. He was just finding a way of people to get connected. However, when you don't see things in a holistic way, what happens? People may misuse what you just developed. So this is why it's so important that we need to have this holistic approach. Every time I was at the UN, every time, and we were building schools, hospitals, we need to think in a holistic way. How many times I saw people building hospitals with no access? It means, okay, how an ambulance will reach the hospital? It's a simple question. Or no power, or no supply, or no security. So you need to have a holistic approach. And this is integration. This is why you cannot work in development teams as an island. And this is why, for example, when we see scale agile framework, SAFe, when we are talking about, ART, agile release trains, that is part of this methodology, we are talking all the time about how we can communicate different pieces, different development teams. And this is understanding change in a holistic way. Because if you don't, you will produce a product that people just don't use. Or you produce a product that will create, for example, I love to use an example. When you produce a poor product, that creates a lot of service, warranty service. You save here, but you pay twice there. It doesn't make sense. So this is another example. And last but not least, and this works for every single one of us. And if we want really to succeed, we need to be able to manage fear. To manage fear. And why? Fear of failure. Fear of losing our jobs, fear of our organization become less relevant, fear of everything, fear. And as I said to you, uh, 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 giving some examples of my career, it's the same. People think that I don't have fear. I have fear. I have a lot of fears on everything, but I manage. I manage. And fear is a survival instinct, but you manage because honestly, if you receive a project and you think it's easy, or they explained it you poorly, or you didn't get it, there is no such a thing as easy project. Because if it's easy, it's not for you. Someone else will do. A junior will do. An intern will do. If it's you doing, it's because it's in your limit. It's in your limit. And what happens? It happens for me, it happens for everybody. You have this fear. The first time I had a project at the UN, building the roads in Afghanistan, it's fear. You fear. You say, what will happen? Not fear for my security, but what is the complex? How will we build that? Which kind of machinery do we need? Which kind of people? Who will build? How will manage? How will get fuel? You know, and this is fear, but this is very healthy when you know how to manage, because this is what will drive you to anti-fragility. Because when you are able to cope and manage your fears, you are able to resist more to stress. You will be able to resist more to stress. And this is exactly why you should manage. It's very dangerous when you are, I would say, fearless, and it's very dangerous when you are paranoid about risks. You always need to keep this in mind. So, going back on what I said quickly, I said that you need to move from fragility to anti fragility. I said about learning to unlearn. I said about how relevant is to use data and have the right information to leverage results. I talk about simplicity. I spoke about work-life balance. I spoke about change and understanding change in a holistic way. And I finished talking about how do we manage fear. And I want to finish with a final thought is that you should never, ever in your life to expect stability. Most of the time, people always think that the situation is not good now, but the thunderstorm will come to an end and everything will go back to what it was. This does not exist. The world will never go back to a pre COVID world. The world will never go back to a pre Ukraine war. The world will never go back to when social media was not as relevant as today. It's not. These stable scenario do not exist. What we need to leverage is our competence to navigate on this VUCA environment, to navigate volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity, and thrive by managing the way we handle fear, trying to build anti-fragility to ourselves, to our area, and to our organization, understanding what is coming. And it's a natural that we all fear stress. And it seems, I would say, opposite when I say you should have stress to become more anti-fragile, but at the same time we don't cope well. We were not born to be stressed. We were born historically to live, nicely in peace, health. So, and this is why we see today such a dramatic turbulence. It's exactly, absolutely, exactly because of this. I want to, before I put my final slide, I want just to invite you. I am becoming very active on YouTube, and I created last year a series called What Matters. And in this series, it was, of course, I'm not a career, I don't work in career counseling. I don't do that. This is not my business. My business is mostly in capital projects. But I did this for my two daughters because they were starting their careers and they were completely afraid, lost. And I created this series. Was a volunteer work talking about the relevance of passion in your career and the results of what you do, how it's important to have options and to become anti-fragile, how it's important to plan and have a roadmap, and how is important to leverage your relationships and to work with ethics. And I did that, and maybe it's useful. It could be useful for you, or for, I would say, those who have children, to learn a little bit more. So with that, I want just to put my very final message, and this is a quote from Voltaire that I love. It's talking about uncertainty. Uncertainty is an awkward, very uncomfortable position. But certainty, it's absolutely for sure an absurd position. So thank you very, very much for inviting me. Thank you very much, Gopal. Thank you, Mohammed, for reaching out to me. This is the QR code and also my social media if you want to talk. And now, Gopal, I will bring you back to the screen. Okay, I will bring you back to the screen now. So you need just to unmute your mic.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Ricardo. That was a very insightful presentation. I think these 7 methods we have to habitualize, and it was very well packaged by you. It shows the experience that you have behind the projects that you do, and also for delivering such lectures. Thanks a lot.
Then thank you. Really, I really appreciate. I would love, honestly, to be together with you, but we will be together in the future.
Definitely, yeah.
I have a couple of questions. I know we are running out of time, but I will spend a couple of questions just trying to answer some of the questions. So the first one I received, the question is here, is, hi, Ricardo, the qualities of a project manager will surely need to be different post the lockdown. What new avatar should we project managers take when returning to work? Thanks. That's a fantastic question. I think that what happened is that COVID just speeded up things that were already happening. So it's not that COVID brought a completely new horizon. It just speeded up. But for me, the new avatar is someone that knows that change is part of the game. I was educated as a project manager, always thinking that change is something you should avoid at all costs. Change is something that you need to, stop and control. Now it's different. Now you need to embrace change, allow change to happen, because these will position. So for you, what I see today as a project manager is an enabler, a wonderful communicator, and someone that adapt, react, and enable changes. These for me is the avatar, because trust me, what you are doing today will not be the same tomorrow. Will not. And if it's the same tomorrow, you should be concerned, because probably you are missing something. So this would be my new avatar. And when you ask me about when returning to work, I would address in two things. Maybe when return to the physical work, I would say the work in an office. When you return, I think everybody will feel joy uh, to go back and to go back to the colleagues, and at the same time the challenges, because of course when you get used to something, it's hard for you to change. So some people will feel less comfortable going back to work. But what I see, and I don't know exactly what will be your policies on that, but what I see, it's most of the time people will have this hybrid model of work for most of them. And why? For two reasons. First, it will increase uh, 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 satisfaction, employee satisfaction. And second, everybody will be prepared. If something happens again, everybody knows how to say, next week, everybody at home. It will not be a massive disruption like it was 2 years. And I need to tell you, you were very lucky because technology companies, they suffer far less than traditional companies. Traditional companies, they suffer dramatically because they don't have this cultural understanding of working from home, and now they had to learn the hard way. So this is how I see on that. But thanks for your question. Okay, the next one is, as per your early videos on PMBOK 6, is still applicable for PMBOK 7. Is this statement applicable for 2000? Yes, yes, yes. This is a thing. Let me share with you what I think. The PMBOK, the new PMBOK, it's an umbrella. I said this many times in videos. This is an umbrella. The PMBOK 7 aims to be not generic, but aims to talk about principles that would be applicable in agile, in waterfall, in whatever you want to develop. And the PMBOK 6 is one of the possible approaches you may take. So, and I know many people ask me, why did they call it PMBOK 7 and not another name? Maybe it would be better if they call it another name and not PM. But, I'm not PMI. So they decided to put PMBOK 7. But for me, the PMBOK 7 does not eliminate anything. I was talking with a large oil company recently. I was giving a talk like this one to a very large oil company. And they said this. They said, with the new PMBOK 7, do I need to destroy everything I'm doing on oil because I'm following PMBOK 6? This is irrelevant. And honestly, if you use PMBOK 6, 7, Scrum, use whatever you can to deliver better. That's it. And for me, I love the concept of the Swiss Army knife. I am Scrum Master, I am a safe a certified consultant, I am PMP for many, many years. I am IPMA level A. I am a certified cost engineer. I am certified in pretty much Prince, in pretty much everything. And you ask me, what do I use? It depends. I look to the problem and I say, okay, this one, the best approach is this one. And that one, the best approach is a different one. So don't take things something like, oh, these destroy this. There is no single word at PMBOK 7 that contradicts the PMBOK 6. There is no single word. And I challenge anyone to show something different than that. So this is why I'm always think that PMI should keep the PMBOK 6 and should let people use the 6 and use the 7. That's perfect. They work together. Okay. Okay. Oh, that this is okay. What are the resources and books do you suggest for building manager? This is a very hard question because everyone has a style, right? A style. I really like the Antifragile book from Nassim Taleb. I love a book from Amy Edmondson called The Fearless Organization. I like very much. You know how you create an environment of psychological safety. I really like a Rita McGrath book called Seeing Around Corners. And this book, Seeing Around Corners, for me, it's perfect for you to see. And she starts saying, ice melts from the edges. It's just to say, problems, they start happening on the edge. It starts on the connection between you and the client. And most of the time, you need to go to the border to see when a VUCA event is happening or when something, an unpredictable event is about to disrupt your business. But if you are on the middle of the crust, you don't see anything but ice. And but there are so many books. I like very much reading, and I read many times. What I would suggest you is I read a lot of summaries, and I read the summary, and based on the summary, then I go deep and read the book. I do a little bit the opposite, because I read probably, I would guess, maybe 50 to 100 summaries in a year. And then I read maybe one book a month, one book every 45 days. So just to give you an idea. But there are many, many books. I have a podcast that I cover this too, okay, that you can take a look on my website about books and free courses, online courses that you can take to improve your skills, okay? So the next one, Ricardo, can you provide some insights on how can a project manager deal with a situation to be hard on targets, but still being empathetic with people? Oh, I have just one answer for you on that. It's what William Ury, there is a book on negotiation that for me is a masterpiece. It's called Getting to Yes. And the writer is called William Ury from Harvard Law School. And he always say, tough with the problem, kind with the people. Tough with the problem, kind with the people. It means you are tough with the target, but kind and empathetic with the people. It's something like, it's not that you are here and they are there and you are fighting for the target. No. It's you and them are on one side. The target is on the other side. You both have the same problem. You have a target in front of you, but your problem is not your employee. And this is being empathetic. This is why, for example, for me, targets are so relevant, that you create, of course, targets that are meaningful, targets that are possible, and targets that are relevant. Because many times people just create targets, and when you have a target that is absolutely moonshot, many times people get demotivated because they know they will not reach the target. This is why the process of targeting on the project is something like you put a target and you put a stretch. For example, I'm not giving, this is just my personal advice. I always create a thresholds of targets. I would say the minimum acceptable target is this. Then there is a stretch target, and then it's a moonshot target. And then, instead of having just the moonshot target, so you have some ways of journey for people. Because many times, for example, when you suffer an accident and you are unable to walk, every single step counts. It's not when you are back running a marathon. And this is something that is people need to be very, very mindful and think always on what they should do to get really reliable and achievable targets. One more, Rina. Okay. What's the top 3 project management we have learned as results of the pandemic? That's okay. That's a good question. For me, what we have learned is that we need to adapt and prepare for unpredictable things. The concept of stability just shifted in all senses. The stability, I'm saying stability on the work, on the way you work, on your approach to work. Second, speed changes. It's I don't want to. I don't know if you want to say that time is shrinking or speed is increasing. It doesn't matter, but there is a different environment today, a very different, because there is a very different pace from the usual. And third one is the concept that nothing will go back. Don't expect that things will go back to absolutely normal before the pandemic, because they will not. Your business today is completely different from the business 2 years ago. And it will be different. The way you recruit people, the way you hire people, the kind of skills you are looking in people will be different, because you want to make sure that when something similar to this happens again, you are fully prepared, right? This is the aim of every single one. Okay, there is one last here. Okay, great energy, Ricardo. Thanks for boosting us. Please suggest your must-watch videos and some important project management books to read. Okay, first, thank you very much. You know, many times people think that I'm happy with this energy. I am so fortunate because I love what I do. For me, it's such a pleasure to work with projects. You know, it's something that, you know, it's very fun for me to do that. And I want to express this because it's also a stimulus for all of you. In terms of videos, in my website, I would say that the video about the PMBOK guide, another video that I recently published about what is a project for me, because many people don't know what a project is. People still talking about project, but they don't know what a project is. Something very specific. It's not everything, because it's trendy, you know, it's fashion. People call everything project. So I would say this to the and the What Matters series. And the What Matters series, I'm telling because it has a very relevant meaning for me. Okay, because it's something that I really want to help people to use it. And in terms of books, there is my friend Antonio Nieto just published a book called The Project Economy on Harvard Business Review. It's an excellent book that you should all take a look. I would recommend you also to look for example, not specific books on project management per se, but on related books, okay? On, for example, Business Model Canvas. My colleague, I'm a friend of Alex Osterwalder, and he published a book that is super nice called Business Model Canvas, and he has some variations of this book. It's a book of tools, how you can use a canvas to frame your project and to do. And I would study also a lot about Lean. I would study, of course, Scrum, it's okay, but this is quite easy to learn. But I would study a lot about Lean and Scale Agile, how you can scale the concept of agility to large enterprises, to transformations, etc. This would be, I would say, my path. And I want also to suggest, I led Brightline for 4 years, and at brightline.org, you can find some ultra nice books that you can download for free, no cost. You can download there and make the best use with articles from Roger Martin, Rita McGrath, Emmy Edmondson. So it's very worth reading, and it's free. Okay, and it's free. So look, yeah, this is the link. So Gopal, back to you. Thank you very, very much. So I will share with you this video so you can place. And if there is another question, I'll be more than happy to record an answer. Okay, Gopal, thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much. All the best to all of you. Okay,
thank you all. Have a nice evening.
Bye.
Thank you.